Michael Jordan froze solid as he leafed through his old high school yearbook, his eyes fixed on a photograph. It's her, Jessica Miller, the girl who rejected me in front of the entire school. "Dad, who is that?" Marcus inquired, oblivious to the import of that name. Michael had never confided in anyone about that day. Not his ex-wife, not his friends, not even himself. But what he was on the verge of discovering about Jessica would fundamentally alter everything. Everything he believed about success, failure, and the true essence of life. This was not merely a tale of adolescent rejection. It was a testament to how a single no could etch itself into one's memory for decades, yet transform you irrevocably. "Hey, Marcus, take a look at this," Michael called out, shattering the silence. It was a Sunday afternoon, and rain lashed against the windows of the Charlotte mansion. While sifting through old boxes of memorabilia, he stumbled upon something he never imagined he would need to revisit. "What is it, Dad?" "Found another forgotten trophy?" Michael chuckled, shaking his head. "Even better. I found my senior year high school yearbook. Want to see what a total nerd your old man used to be?" Marcus dropped his ball and approached, ever inquisitive about his father's life pre-fame. They settled onto the Italian leather sofa, and Michael carefully opened the yearbook as if it were a sacred relic. The yellowed pages exuded that nostalgic scent of aged paper. Michael flipped past the sports teams, the clubs, the graduation photos. He was searching for something specific, though he wasn't entirely sure what. Then he reached the cheerleading section, and there she was, Jessica Miller, front row in the blue and gold uniform of Laney High School. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, a smile that could illuminate entire stadiums. She gazed directly into the camera with a self-assurance Michael, at 17, could only dream of possessing. Michael's finger delicately traced the edge of the photograph. For a fleeting moment, he was no longer the billionaire, the legendary number 23, the man who had seemingly conquered everything in life. He was just Mike Jordan, the lanky kid who had been cut from the varsity team in his sophomore year. "Dad?" Marcus's voice seemed to come from a great distance. "Are you all right?" Michael blinked several times, returning to the present. "Sorry, son, I was reminiscing." Marcus observed the photograph that had captivated his father. "Who is she?" "Jessica Miller. Someone I knew back then." "Knew her? How? Did you two date?" Michael nearly choked on his own saliva. "No, Marcus, we most certainly did not date." "So what did happen?" "Judging by your expression, it must have been significant." Michael remained silent for a long moment. He had never recounted this story to anyone. Not to Juanita, his ex-wife, not to his closest friends, not even to the psychologists who had guided him through the most arduous periods of his career. Yet there was something about that rainy afternoon, something about his son's genuine curiosity, that compelled him to open up. "I asked her out. She declined." Marcus gawked. "She rejected Michael Jordan." "Marcus, I wasn't the Michael Jordan back then. I was just Mike, an awkward kid still trying to figure out who he was." "Tell me everything, Dad, please." Michael took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were no longer the eyes of a 60-year-old man. They were the eyes of a 17-year-old adolescent, brimming with pain and vulnerability. "All right, but it's a long story. To truly grasp what transpired on that fateful day in March of 1981, you need to comprehend who Mike Jordan was at 17. He had shot up 20 centimeters in 2 years and still hadn't quite figured out what to do with those long legs and arms that seemed to have a life of their own. His mother, Dolores, always said he was all elbows and knees, and she wasn't wrong. At Laney High School, Mike wasn't exactly popular. He was known, of course. It was hard not to notice someone with his height and that determined way he played basketball. But he wasn't part of the in crowd. He didn't have the flashiest car, wear the most expensive clothes, or date the most coveted girls. Mike was too intense for some, too reserved for others. He spent extra hours on the court, practicing shots until the security guards would eject him from the school. His peers found this peculiar. Why would anyone dedicate themselves so vehemently to a sport? But Jessica Miller, Jessica was different. She wasn't merely another cheerleader. Jessica possessed something Mike had never encountered in anyone his age, a genuine kindness that extended to everyone, not just the popular crowd. Mike vividly recalled the day she had helped a boy with Down syndrome who had dropped his books in the hallway. While others walked past, snickering, Jessica paused, helped him gather everything, and even conversed with him about math class. She greeted the janitorial staff by name. She inquired about the secretary's ailing daughter's health. When the debate team lost the state championship, Jessica was the only cheerleader who showed up to console them. "She was special, you know," Michael said to Marcus, still caught in the recollection. "She wasn't just beautiful. She was good, genuinely good. And you were utterly smitten with her, completely lost. For weeks, I'd been mustering the courage to speak to her." Mike spent hours fantasizing about conversations. He plotted routes through the school that would casually lead past her classroom. He memorized Jessica's class schedule to maximize his chances of encountering her in the hallways. His friends Chad and Tony relentlessly mocked him. "Dude, forget about Jessica Miller," Chad would say. "She's dating Tommy Patterson. They're going to get married and have perfect, golden children. Besides," Tony added, "she's like school royalty. And you're—" "I'm what?" Mike asked, already knowing the answer. "You're you, man. No offense, but you two are from different worlds." Mike knew his friends weren't being cruel. They were simply stating the truth everyone recognized. Jessica Miller and Mike Jordan were an incongruous pair. But an adolescent heart disregards logic. The courage finally materialized one Tuesday in March. Mike had spent the previous night awake, rehearsing every word, every gesture. He had even practiced in front of the mirror, attempting to appear more confident than he truly was. The plan was simple: approach her table during lunch and extend the invitation. Quick, direct, no fuss. But when the moment arrived, Mike realized he hadn't rehearsed the most daunting part: the walkover. Laney High's cafeteria was a complex social ecosystem. Each table had its tribe, its territory, its unwritten rules. Jessica's table was closest to the windows, perpetually filled with cheerleaders, football players, and the school's most popular students. Mike stood frozen at the cafeteria entrance for a full 5 minutes, clutching a tray of food that was growing cold. His eyes were fixed on Jessica, who was laughing at something Tommy Patterson had said. Tommy Patterson, the quarterback, tall, handsome, confident, everything Mike was not. "Are you going to go for it or not?" Chad appeared beside him. "I'm going." "When? In 2 hours?" Mike took a deep breath. It was now or never. The walk to Jessica's table felt like an eternity. Mike felt every eye on him, hearing conversations cease as he passed. Or perhaps it was just paranoia. It didn't matter. Every step was an act of courage. When he finally reached the table, Mike's heart was pounding so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. "Hi, Jessica." His voice came out thinner than he'd expected. Jessica looked up, surprised. "Oh, hi, Mike. Is everything all right?" Tommy Patterson stopped talking and looked at Mike with an expression that mixed curiosity and irritation. The rest of the table fell silent. "Everything's fine. Well, the dance is next Friday, and I was wondering if you'd like to go with me." The words tumbled out, as if Mike feared his courage would abandon him mid-sentence. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica flushed. She glanced quickly at Tommy, then at her friends, then back at Mike. Her eyes were kind, but Mike already knew the answer before she even opened her mouth. "Mike, that's very sweet of you," she said carefully, "but I'm already going with Tommy." Mike nodded, trying to appear casual. "Oh, of course. That makes sense." He should have left right then. He should have turned around and walked away with dignity. But Jessica added something that made everything worse. "Maybe another time?" She said this with a sweet smile, trying to soften the blow. But Mike knew there wouldn't be another time. They both knew. "Sure," he said, forcing a smile. "Another time." As he turned to leave, Mike heard a muffled snicker coming from someone at the table. He didn't have the courage to look back and see who it was. The rest of lunch was a blur. Mike sat with Chad and Tony, who tried to console him, but their words seemed to come from another planet. He could barely eat, barely breathe. In the following days, Mike avoided Jessica Miller whenever possible. He changed his routes through the hallways, ate lunch at different times, and pretended to be busy whenever he saw her approaching. But the pain remained. The shame remained. The feeling that he had been exposed, vulnerable, small in front of everyone. It was awful, Michael told Marcus 40 years later. I'd never felt so humiliated in my life. But Dad, you were just a kid. Everyone gets rejected in adolescence. I know that now, but back then I thought it was the end of the world. Michael paused, looking again at the photo in the yearbook. Funny how life works. That no from Jessica drove me even deeper into basketball. I trained as if every shot were a vendetta against rejection. So she helped you in a way. Yes, but I never thought about it that way. Until today. Marcus observed his father's pensive expression. And now you're thinking about her. Why? Michael remained silent for a long moment. I don't know. Perhaps because I'm finally old enough to wonder, what happened to all the people who were part of my story? How did life treat them? You want to know what happened to Jessica Miller? Yes, I guess so. Marcus smiled. Dad, you're Michael Jordan. If there's anyone in the world who can find that out, it's you. Michael chuckled. Do you think I should? I think you've already decided. You're just pretending you're still thinking? Michael shook his head. His son truly knew him too well. That night, Michael found himself in front of his laptop, staring at Google's blank screen. He typed Jessica Miller and stared at the letters for 5 full minutes. What the hell was he doing? It was ridiculous. He was a 60-year-old man, searching for a teenage crush. She probably didn't even remember him. She was likely living her happy life, married, with children, never once thinking about the awkward kid who had embarrassed her in the cafeteria back in 1981. But curiosity was stronger than reason. Michael pressed enter. Hundreds of results appeared. Jessica Miller, the actress. Jessica Miller, the lawyer. Jessica Miller, the food blogger. None of them was his Jessica Miller. He refined his search. Jessica Miller, North Carolina. Then Jessica Miller, Laney High School. Then Jessica Miller, 1981. He was about to give up when he found something that made his heart pound. A small local newspaper article, published 6 months earlier. Local teacher honored for dedication to students with special needs. Michael clicked the link, his hands trembling. Jessica Miller Thompson was recognized last night for 20 years of exceptional service to students with disabilities at Pine Valley Elementary School. The former Laney High School alumna, who graduated in 1981, dedicated her entire career to ensuring that every child has access to the education they deserve, regardless of their limitations. Jessica doesn't merely teach these children, Director Miguel Rodriguez stated during the tribute ceremony. She cherishes them as if they were her own. She arrives early, stays late, comes in on weekends when necessary. She tirelessly advocates for every resource, every opportunity, every chance these children might have to truly shine. Miller Thompson was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2015, yet she continues teaching despite the disease's progression. These children give me so much more than I could ever give them, she said during her acceptance speech. They have taught me what truly matters in life. Michael read and reread the article 3 times. Each word was a gut punch. Multiple sclerosis. The debilitating illness that stripped away movement, strength, and independence. And Jessica continued teaching. He clicked on the accompanying photo and barely recognized the woman who appeared on screen. There she was, Jessica Miller, 40 years her senior. Her blonde hair was streaked with gray, and the lines around her eyes hadn't been present in the school yearbook. She leaned on a cane and smiled at the camera with the same smile that had haunted Mike's dreams at 17. But what struck Michael most was the backdrop, a classroom full of children with Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, all smiling, all looking at Jessica with an adoration Michael immediately recognized. It was the same way he had looked at her 40 years prior. Jessica had become a hero. But what Michael discovered in the following 2 hours of intense research completely shattered his heart. Michael spent the entire night delving deeper into his research. Each new piece of information he uncovered about Jessica Miller Thompson proved more devastating than the last. She had married David Thompson in 1985 2 years after graduating college. David was a physical education teacher and basketball coach, ironically the very sport that had dominated Michael's own life. They had two children, Sarah in 1987 and Marcus in 1989. Michael had to stop reading when he saw her son's name, Marcus, the same name as his own son. Jessica's life seemed perfect in the early years. She had graduated college with a degree in special education, secured a position at Pine Valley Elementary, and was building a family with the man she loved. But in 2003, everything changed. Michael found David Thompson's obituary in a local newspaper edition. Killed instantly in a car accident, he was survived by his wife Jessica and their two children, Sarah, 16, and Marcus, 14. From that point onward, Jessica had raised the children single-handedly. She persevered in her teaching career, often working beyond her contracted hours to make ends meet. She even dipped into her own funds to procure school supplies when the budget proved insufficient. In 2010, Sarah gained admission to medical school. In 2011, Marcus secured a scholarship to pursue a degree in engineering. Jessica had sold their home to finance her children's education and relocated to a modest apartment near the school. Then in 2015 came the diagnosis that would once again upend everything: multiple sclerosis. Michael devoured article after article about the disease. He knew it was degenerative, incurable, gradually eroding one's ability to move. But what struck him most profoundly was the revelation that Jessica had continued teaching despite the disease's inexorable progression. There were photographs of her using a cane, then a walker, always surrounded by adoring children. Testimonials from parents attested to Jessica's transformative impact on their children's lives. But what nearly brought Michael to tears was his final discovery. Pine Valley Elementary's special education program was on the verge of being terminated due to municipal budget cuts. Jessica Miller Thompson, the woman who had dedicated her entire life to children often overlooked by society, was on the brink of losing everything. She had valiantly campaigned against these cuts for months. She attended city council meetings, penned letters to politicians, and mobilized parents and families. But funds were simply not available. The program was slated for termination at the end of the academic year. 23 children with disabilities would be transferred to overcrowded programs in other schools. Many of them would not receive the specialized attention they so desperately required. Jessica found herself engaged in a solitary battle against the system, and she was losing ground. Michael glanced at the clock. It was 3 a.m. He sat in his opulent mansion, surrounded by trophies that bore testament to every battle he had won. And the woman who had once rejected him was losing the most crucial battle of her life, not for wealth, not for renown, but out of love for children who had no one else to champion their cause. Michael picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Patricia? It's Michael. My apologies for calling so early, but I need you to make some urgent calls." Discreetly. "Of course, Mr. Jordan. What is this regarding?" "Pine Valley Elementary School in Wilmington. I need to know everything about its budget, programs, and needs, particularly about the special education program. May I ask about this sudden interest in special education?" Michael looked again at Jessica's photo on the computer screen. "An old friend, someone I should have kept in touch with." The following morning, Patricia entered Michael's office with a comprehensive dossier on Pine Valley Elementary. She had worked all night, making calls, researching, compiling information. "Here's everything I managed to gather on the school," she said, placing a thick folder on the table. "And I must say, Mr. Jordan, it's quite a bleak situation." Michael opened the folder and began to read. Pine Valley Elementary served one of Wilmington's most disadvantaged communities. 80% of students qualified for free school lunches. The school had lost state funding for 3 consecutive years. Teachers were being laid off, programs were being cut. Jessica's special education program was one of the most successful in the state. Its student progress rates were exceptional. Families traveled from other cities to enroll their special needs children in her class. But the program cost $180,000 annually. For a school barely able to cover basic expenses, it was a luxury they could no longer afford. Michael's gaze settled on the page. $180,000. Less than he spent on a week's vacation at his private resort in the Bahamas. Less than it cost to fuel and maintain his yacht for a year. less than his annual insurance premium alone for one of his luxury cars. He let out a faint sigh, almost imperceptible. But for Jessica, for those 23 children, that sum was everything. It was the difference between having a future with dignity and being relegated to the forgotten fringes of the educational system. Michael ran a hand over his face, deep in thought. How could something so negligible to him mean so much to so many lives? He slowly closed the folder, as if putting a part of himself to rest. He looked at Patricia, his gaze steady. I want you to contact the school's principal. What's her name? Miguel Rodriguez, Patricia replied, already opening her laptop. Right. But don't mention my name yet. Simply state that a prospective donor is interested in gaining a deeper understanding of the special education program's current status. Patricia nodded professionally. Yet she detected a distinct shift in her boss's tone. The matter was no longer a mere curiosity. It was personal. Of course, Mr. Jordan. Is there anything further? Michael gazed out the window, then returned his gaze to her. Yes. I want to visit the school. I want to see Jessica in action. I want to get a feel for the environment before I make any decisions. Patricia furrowed her brow slightly. When, sir? This afternoon. She hesitated. She typed something, then looked up, a touch of surprise in her eyes. Today, but your calendar is completely booked. You have a meeting with Nike at 2, dinner with investors at 6. Michael didn't hesitate. Cancel everything. Sir, you have crucial contracts, significant commitments. Michael regarded her calmly. Patricia, today nothing is more paramount than this. Michael rose and approached the window. Outside, Charlotte was stirring for another day. Vehicles whizzed along the streets, hurried individuals rushing to their occupations, their existences, their burdens. Somewhere, an hour away, Jessica Miller Thompson was preparing for work. Despite the pain, despite the impending termination of her program, she would teach nonetheless. Patricia, for 4 decades, I focused on triumphing in games, championships, and business ventures. I forged an empire, yet today I've come to realize that someone I've known for a substantial period is waging a battle far more profound than anything I've ever encountered. Patricia remained silent. Therefore, yes, cancel everything. Today, the paramount item on my agenda is to meet 23 children who desperately need a champion. Michael arrived at Pine Valley Elementary at 8 in the morning, clad in jeans and a simple t-shirt. He had left his driver at home and operated the vehicle himself, desiring to remain inconspicuous. The school was precisely as he had envisioned, a low-slung brick edifice featuring peeling paint and a playground equipped with apparatuses that had certainly seen better days. Yet it was impeccably clean, well-organized, and boasted a meticulously maintained garden at the entrance, adorned with a sign proclaiming, Pine Valley Elementary, where every child matters. Miguel Rodriguez greeted him at the main entrance. He was a man of modest stature, in his mid-50s, with distinguished gray hair and kind eyes. He wore a suit that had undoubtedly seen better days, yet it was impeccably clean and meticulously pressed. Mr. Jordan, he uttered, extending his hand, it is truly an honor to make your acquaintance in person. The pleasure is entirely mine, Mr. Rodriguez. I appreciate your accommodating me on such short notice. When my secretary informed me that Michael Jordan wished to visit our institution, I initially assumed it was some sort of jest. They walked through the school corridors. The walls were adorned with student work, vibrant drawings, and essays articulating the children's aspirations. Michael paused to read a few. When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut. I aspire to be a teacher, akin to Mrs. Thompson. I wish to assist individuals similar to myself. Mr. Rodriguez, tell me about Jessica Thompson. The principal's countenance brightened. Ah, Jessica. She is the profound reason I still hold unwavering faith in education after 3 decades within the school system. They paused before a classroom door decorated with colorful paper cutouts of hands. Each hand bore a name: Sarah, Marcus, Tommy, Jennifer, and many others. Jessica arrives every day at 6:30 in the morning, Rodriguez continued. An hour and a half before the mandatory start time, She says this extra time helps the students begin their day in a calmer, more organized fashion. Through the door's window, Michael observed Jessica for the first time in 40 years. She was seated on a low chair, assisting a boy with Down syndrome in practicing his writing. He held the pencil awkwardly, yet Jessica remained infinitely patient. "Very good, Marcus," she encouraged, and Michael's heart leaped upon hearing the name. "Look how beautifully that M turned out. You're becoming quite proficient at this." The boy grinned from ear to ear and proudly presented the paper to Jessica. "May I show this to my mom?" "Of course. Your mother will be so proud." Michael watched Jessica navigate the room. She used a cane, yet moved with grace and determination. She paused beside each child, offering personalized encouragement. "Beautiful work, Sarah," she said to a girl with autism who was assembling a puzzle. "See how the pieces fit together perfectly when you pay close attention?" The girl was nonverbal, but she smiled when she managed to fit a difficult piece. "She knows each child individually," Rodriguez whispered. "Not just their names, but their stories, their fears, their dreams. She understands precisely how to motivate each one." Michael continued observing, captivated. Was this the same woman he had known as a cheerleader? The same individual who had rejected him in the school cafeteria? This was a better version. This was Jessica Miller Thompson, who had discovered her true purpose in life. "Mr. Rodriguez," Michael stated after 20 minutes of observation, "tell me about the financial situation." The principal sighed. "It's complicated. We've lost significant state funding in recent years. We've had to make painful cuts. And the special education program? That is the most painful cut of all. Jessica's program is exceptionally costly because it necessitates a low teacher-to-student ratio, specialized materials, and adapted equipment. But the results she achieves, Mr. Jordan, she transforms lives." "Give me an example." Rodriguez gestured toward the boy with Down syndrome, who was working with Jessica. "That's Marcus. When he arrived here 3 years ago, he couldn't even write his own name. He's now able to read basic books and perform fundamental arithmetic. His parents are incredulous at the progress." "And what if the program is cut?" "Marcus and the 22 other children will be transferred to overcrowded mainstream classes. They won't receive the specialized attention they require. Many will regress." Michael felt a surge of indignation well up within him. It wasn't fair. These children hadn't chosen their limitations. They shouldn't be penalized for budgetary constraints. "Mr. Rodriguez, may I ask you a direct question?" "Of course. How much would it cost not just to save the program, but to make it the best in the state?" The principal paused for a moment. "Well, if we could hire more specialized teachers, acquire state-of-the-art equipment, and offer supplementary therapies, it would likely be $500,000 per year. $500,000. Michael spent that much on a weekend in Las Vegas. And Jessica? Does she know she's on the verge of losing the program? She knows. She's been fighting this for months. She attends every city council meeting, writes letters to politicians, mobilizes the parents. But given her medical condition, each of these battles leaves her utterly exhausted." Rodriguez paused, watching Jessica through the window. "Do you know what the most poignant part is? Last night she called me in tears. She said she feels as though she's failing these children, as if she isn't fighting hard enough." Michael clenched his fists. "She's waging this war alone." "Exactly. And she's losing, not due to a lack of dedication, but due to a dearth of resources." Michael observed Jessica again. She was assisting a girl with cerebral palsy and using an adapted tablet. Despite her own mobility challenges, Jessica knelt beside the wheelchair, utterly disregarding her own pain. "Well done, Amanda," Jessica said with palpable enthusiasm. "You managed to form the word happy on the tablet. How are you feeling today?" The girl touched the screen with effort but managed to select a smiling emoji. "I'm happy too," Jessica said, kissing the girl's forehead. "You make me happy every single day." It was at that moment that Michael reached his resolve. "Mr. Rodriguez, I need to make a call. May I use your office?" "Of course, but I'm not just going to save Jessica's program. I'm going to transform it into something she never imagined possible." In the modest, unadorned office of Pine Valley Elementary, Michael settled into the chair opposite Director Rodriguez's well-worn wooden desk. The folder containing the special program report still lay open before him, but his thoughts had already transcended mere figures. He reached for his cell phone, took a deep breath, and made the first call. "Patricia," he said, his voice resolute, "I need you to clear my schedule for the next 3 days." On the other end of the line, there was a pause. "Mr. Jordan, I apologize. That's simply not feasible," Patricia replied with a note of caution. "You have the meeting with the Nike executives at 2, the investor dinner tonight, an ESPN interview tomorrow, and—" "Patricia," Michael interrupted calmly, yet with a rare gravitas in his words, "how many years have you worked with me?" 12 years, sir," she answered without hesitation. "In 12 years, have I ever asked to cancel everything for 3 days?" She hesitated. "No, never." "Then trust me. I am not doing this out of vanity, nor for the sake of my public image. I am doing this because, for the first time in a very long time, I know precisely what truly matters." He looked through the window at the classroom. "This right here," he said, "is more important than any contract, campaign, or event in my entire career." Silence on the other end. "Understood, sir. I will see to it." Michael terminated the call and immediately dialed another number without delay. "This is Michael Jordan," he stated, getting straight to the point. "I need to speak with the nation's foremost attorney specializing in the establishment of educational foundations. Today. Now, if possible." On the other end, the legal assistant hesitated. "Any state preference, sir?" "Number just someone who knows how to establish something enduring, and who grasps that this cannot wait. Today I'm not playing basketball. I'm playing for the lives of 23 children." While on hold, Michael looked out the office window. Outside, on the playground, Jessica was supervising recess. Despite her cane, she moved among the children, ensuring everyone was included in the games. "Mr. Jordan, this is David Chen, an attorney specializing in foundations. How may I assist you?" "Mr. Chen, I wish to establish a foundation today. Not next week, not next month. Today." "Sir, establishing a foundation is a lengthy process that typically takes—" "Mr. Chen, with all due respect, I am Michael Jordan. I possess the resources to make this happen at the pace I dictate. The question is, are you willing to help me?" "Yes, sir, of course. What kind of foundation?" "Special education. I want to establish an endowment to ensure that children with disabilities have access to the best possible education." "I see. What would be the initial amount?" Michael paused. He contemplated all the cars he owned, the houses, the investments, the money he squandered on things that made no difference in anyone's life. $10 million to start. Silence on the other end of the line. "Mr. Jordan, did you say 10 million? To start, I intend to add more as needed." That's incredible. May I ask what inspired such generosity?" Michael glanced back at Jessica, who was now helping a child who had fallen on the playground. "Someone who taught me long ago that true victory isn't getting what you want. It's becoming who you were born to be." After finalizing the legal details, Michael made another call. "Mr. Rodriguez, could you come to your office? I need to discuss the future of Pine Valley Elementary with you." When Rodriguez returned to his office, he found Michael seated behind the desk, bearing an expression he had never witnessed before. It wasn't the self-assured countenance of the legendary athlete. It was something more profound, more human. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm going to be direct. I want to save Jessica's program, but I don't just want to save it. I want to transform it into something exceptional." "Mr. Jordan, that would be wonderful, but the school's budget—" "Forget the school's budget. I've just established a foundation with $10 million. Jessica's program will be permanently funded." Rodriguez was speechless. "But I have conditions," Michael continued. "I want the program expanded. Instead of 23 children, I want them to serve 60. I want to hire more specialized teachers, acquire the best equipment, and offer complementary therapies. That would be a dream come true. I also want Jessica to have access to the best medical treatment available for multiple sclerosis, whatever she needs, wherever she needs it." "Mr. Jordan, she would never accept this as charity." "It won't be charity. I'm going to establish a recognition program for exceptional special education teachers. Jessica will be the inaugural honoree. The medical treatment will be part of the award. Michael rose and walked to the window. One more thing. I want this program to serve as a blueprint for other schools. I want Jessica's methodology to be studied, documented, and replicated nationwide. Mr. Jordan, may I ask why you're doing this? Michael remained silent for a protracted moment. Because 40 years ago, this woman imparted a lesson to me which only today have I truly grasped. She rejected me, and I perceived it as a reflection of my inadequacy. But that wasn't the essence of it. What was it about? It was about purpose. Jessica didn't say no because I was somehow deficient. She said no because she was destined for something greater. She was destined to become a mother to children in need of a mother and a teacher to those who desperately required someone to believe in them. Michael turned to Rodriguez. I gained renown playing basketball, but Jessica became a hero by saving lives. The time has come for the world to acknowledge this. During the ensuing 2 weeks, Michael labored with unprecedented dedication, not to win a game or close a deal, but to forge something that would truly honor Jessica Thompson's life. The foundation was formally constituted as the Michael Jordan Foundation for Excellence in Special Education. The inaugural program would be the Jessica Miller Thompson Center at Pine Valley Elementary. Michael enlisted the foremost architects to comprehensively refurbish the school's special education wing. The plans included classrooms equipped with state-of-the-art technology, dedicated occupational therapy spaces, a library replete with Braille books and audiobooks, and a playground specifically adapted for children with physical disabilities. He also engaged a team of medical specialists in multiple sclerosis to devise a personalized treatment regimen for Jessica. But the most crucial component was the recognition ceremony. Michael desired it to be truly exceptional, not merely a formal ceremony, but a profound celebration of Jessica's life and the indelible impact she had made. Patricia, I want you to reach out to all of Jessica's students' families. I want them to be present. I've already done so, Mr. Jordan. Everyone has confirmed their attendance. And her former students, I want you to track down as many of the children who studied with Jessica over the years as possible. That will be more challenging, but I'll endeavor to do so. I also want you to locate Sarah and Marcus, her children. I want them to be there. Patricia took note of everything. Anything else? Yes. I want you to produce a video chronicling Jessica's life. Interview her parents, her colleagues, her students. I want everyone to comprehend what she embodies. Michael paused, deep in thought. And Patricia, he then added, handle all of this with the utmost discretion. Jessica must not suspect a thing. Jessica received the letter on a blustery Tuesday, one of those days when the sky seemed to hang particularly heavy. The incessant drumming of raindrops against the window pane mingled with the soft whir of the electric coffee maker. She had just returned home from school, utterly exhausted, her legs leaden and shoulders taut after yet another demanding day. The cane propped in the corner seemed to have absorbed the weariness in solidarity with her. Upon opening her mailbox, amidst a clutter of bills and pharmacy flyers, something immediately arrested her gaze. A thick, pristine white envelope bearing the official seal of the school district. It was undeniably official. She furrowed her brow in puzzlement. She had received no prior notification whatsoever. With meticulous care, she settled herself at the small kitchen table, slid open the envelope with the tip of a knife, and let her gaze drift over the formal missive. Dear Ms. Thompson, it is with immense pleasure that we inform you that you have been selected to receive the inaugural North Carolina State Award for Excellence in Special Education. This esteemed award, generously funded by an anonymous donor, recognizes educators who have dedicated their lives to students with special needs. The ceremony will be held in the Grand Ballroom of the Charlotte Hotel on Saturday, May 15th at 7 p.m. Your students have been invited to prepare a special presentation in your honor. Sincerely, the Educational Recognition Committee. Jessica read the letter once, then twice more. Yet even then, she found herself struggling to reconcile with what lay before her. A prize? She murmured, her gaze fixed on the page in utter disbelief. Me? She reached for the phone, almost by instinct, and dialed Principal Rodriguez's number. Miguel, she began, it's Jessica. Do you happen to know anything about a state award of some kind? From the other end of the line, the response was infused with palpable enthusiasm. Ah, Jessica, congratulations, he exclaimed. You deserve far more than this. It's a belated but entirely merited honor. Jessica narrowed her eyes, a hint of suspicion in her voice. But I've never heard of this award before. Who is the anonymous benefactor? I genuinely don't know the individual's identity, Jessica, but I can assure you it's someone who profoundly recognizes the extraordinary work you do. Someone who truly comprehends the profound impact you have on the lives of these children. Jessica drew a deep breath, sensing the inexplicable weight of something she couldn't quite pinpoint, a confluence of emotions and profound unease. Miguel, I'm not sure I can attend. My multiple sclerosis is particularly debilitating this week, and frankly, I'm truly uncomfortable with being the cynosure of all attention. Jessica, he replied in a firm yet gentle tone, your students are counting down the days. They've been rehearsing a special presentation for weeks. Jessica knitted her brows. What do you mean for weeks? But I only received the letter today. There was a silence on the other end. Then Miguel cleared his throat. Well, perhaps someone informed them prematurely. Jessica closed her eyes, suspicious, but remained silent. The thought of disappointing her students was simply unbearable. All right, I'll go. Excellent, Miguel said, with a smile audible in his voice. And Jessica, wear your finest attire. You'll be in the presence of highly esteemed individuals. She smiled, but her heart was unsettled. Something about it felt out of the ordinary, and she had a premonition that the night would alter far more than she anticipated. On Saturday evening, Jessica was more nervous than she had ever been in her adult life. She had purchased a new dress, her first in 5 years, and asked her neighbor to style her hair. She looked in the mirror and saw a 60-year-old woman with graying hair, lines around her eyes, and a cane. She didn't feel like someone deserving of an award. The school bus arrived at 6 o'clock to pick up Jessica and her 23 students. The children were exceedingly excited, dressed in their best clothes, chattering about the special presentation they had prepared. Ms. Thompson, said Marcus, the boy with Down syndrome, you're going to cry when you see our surprise. Oh, really? Jessica smiled. Is it that special? It's the most special thing in the world, said Sarah, the girl with autism who rarely spoke. The Charlotte Hotel was more elegant than Jessica had anticipated. There was a red carpet at the entrance. Photographers, formally dressed individuals entering and exiting. This must be a very important ceremony, Jessica murmured to Rodriguez. You have no idea, he responded, barely able to contain his excitement. The grand ballroom was packed. Jessica recognized a few faces, parents of her students, fellow teachers, school district officials, but there were also many people she did not know. How many people are here? She asked Rodriguez. Around 300. 300? For a teacher's award? Jessica, you underestimate the impact you have on people's lives. Jessica was escorted to a table at the front of the hall, along with her students. She felt uneasy with all the attention, but the children were beaming. The ceremony commenced with addresses from educational dignitaries, expounding upon the paramount importance of special education. Jessica listened courteously, but was primarily concerned with ensuring her students conducted themselves appropriately. Then Rodriguez ascended the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are gathered here to honor a truly exceptional individual. For 2 decades, this person has unequivocally demonstrated that every child, irrespective of their limitations, deserves the opportunity to shine. Jessica shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She has dedicated her life to students whom others might overlook. She discerned potential where others perceived only obstacles. She fostered love where others might have despaired. Jessica's eyes welled up with tears. But before we introduce our honoree, we have a truly distinguished guest, someone who has known her for a considerable time, since before she blossomed into the extraordinary educator she is today. Jessica furrowed her brow. Who could it possibly be? Please welcome Michael Jordan. The hall erupted in a thunderous ovation. Jessica gasped. Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan! What was he doing here? She watched the most renowned figure in the world of basketball ascend the stage. He wore an elegant tuxedo, Yet there was a striking familiarity in his countenance, in his bearing. When their eyes met across the hall, Jessica felt as though she had been struck by lightning. That wasn't merely Michael Jordan, the basketball legend. It was Mike. Mike Jordan, the lanky kid who had asked her to the prom in 1981. "Hello, Jessica," Michael said into the microphone, his eyes fixed on her. "It's been quite some time." Jessica was in shock. 40 years melted away in an instant. She was once again the 17-year-old cheerleader, and he was the shy boy who had summoned the courage to speak to her. "Many of you must be wondering how I know Jessica Miller Thompson," Michael continued, never once averting his gaze from her. "We attended high school together at Laney High School, and I have something very important to share with you." The hall was enveloped in absolute silence. "When I was 17, I asked Jessica to a dance. She said no." Nervous laughter rippled through the hall. Jessica felt her face flush, just as it had 40 years prior. "At the time, I thought that was the worst thing that could happen. I believed rejection meant failure. I thought I wasn't good enough." Michael's voice grew firmer, more impassioned. "But I was profoundly mistaken. Sometimes people tell us no, not because we aren't good enough, but because they are destined for something different, something greater, something more significant." Michael's eyes met Jessica's once more. "Jessica said no to me because she was destined to say yes to something far more meaningful. She was destined to say yes to children who needed her, yes to students whom others might abandon, yes to a life of service and unconditional love." The hall was so silent, Jessica could hear her own heart beating. "I excelled at basketball. I won championships, broke records, achieved renown. But Jessica became something far more significant. She became a true hero." Michael gestured towards Jessica's students. "Look at these children. They are here because Jessica never ceased to believe in them. She championed them when others gave up. She saw light where others saw only darkness." Michael's voice grew thick with emotion. "Jessica, you taught me 40 years ago that true victory isn't about getting what you want. It's about becoming who you were born to be. And you have become precisely who you were born to be." Jessica was openly weeping now, not from sadness, but from something she couldn't quite name. Gratitude, recognition, love. Michael then produced an envelope from his tuxedo pocket. "That is why I am here today, not merely to present an award, but to ensure you can continue to be who you are." He opened the envelope. "Jessica, it is with immense honor that I announce the establishment of the Jessica Miller Thompson Center for Excellence in Special Education, fully funded by the Michael Jordan Foundation." The hall erupted in applause, but Michael continued, his voice cutting through the din. "Your program will never again face budget cuts. Never again." Jessica covered her mouth with her hands, unable to process what she was hearing. "We will expand the program to serve 60 children instead of 23. We will hire more specialized teachers and provide the best available resources." The audience continued to applaud, but Michael wasn't finished. "Jessica, you've spent 20 years caring for others. Now it's time for someone to care for you. You will have access to the best medical treatment available for your condition. The finest doctors, the most advanced treatments, wherever and whenever you need them." Jessica was sobbing now, but Michael pressed on. "Most importantly, this center will serve as a model for schools across the nation. Your methodology, your passion, your unwavering belief that every child matters, we will bring that to the entire world." Michael paused, letting the gravity of his words hang in the air. "Jessica Miller Thompson, you rejected Michael Jordan 40 years ago. But today, Michael Jordan is here to say thank you. Thank you for saying no. Thank you for forcing me to find my path. And thank you for finding yours." The entire hall rose in a deafening ovation. Jessica could barely breathe through her tears. But the greatest surprise was yet to come. The ceremony had concluded, but Jessica's heart still pounded erratically. The hall was filled with smiling parents, excited children clutching their medals, emotional teachers, and board members congratulating her with pats on the back and warm greetings. She was the center of attention, a position where she had never felt comfortable. Yet at that moment, for some reason, it didn't feel wrong. As she moved away from the throng, seeking a quieter corner of the hotel to compose herself, Jessica saw the small arms of Marcus, her student with Down syndrome, stretch out toward her. He firmly clutched a golden cardboard medal suspended by a red ribbon. "Mrs. Thompson," he called out, his face alight. "Did you like our surprise?" Jessica smiled, surprised and deeply moved. "Surprise?" she asked, looking around. "Did you know?" Before Marcus could respond, a multitude of children's voices erupted in chorus. "We did!" Sarah, the autistic girl whom Jessica had spent years helping to communicate better, approached, smiling. "Mr. Michael came to school to speak with us. He said you were very special and that he wanted to do something beautiful for you." Jessica gazed, bewildered, at the man across the room. Michael Jordan. He was smiling, but not with a celebrity's grin. It was a smile, serene, grateful, profound. She brought a hand to her chest, touching the brooch one of her students had given her moments before. Her gaze still conveyed disbelief. You did all this for me?" Michael approached her with slow, deliberate steps, full of respect. "May I speak with Ms. Thompson alone for a moment?" he asked the children. Marcus held Jessica's hand for another second before releasing it. "You may, but don't take too long, okay? We want more pictures." The children scurried away, laughing and running towards the dessert buffet. Jessica and Michael stood there together for the first time in 40 years. Two worlds separated by time, reunited by something far greater. She took a deep breath. Emotion weighed heavily on her chest, as if trapped between her ribs. "I still can't believe any of this is real," Jessica said, shaking her head slightly. "Why, Michael?" "After all these years, why?" Michael observed her for a moment. His gaze was not that of a superstar, nor an entrepreneur. It was the gaze of the skinny 17-year-old boy who, one day, had been humiliated before the entire school, and never forgot. He saw there the vestiges of the past. The soft freckles had vanished, her blonde hair was now streaked with gray, and the cane leaning beside her was a silent reminder of time's passage. But her eyes were precisely the same. Kind, resolute, compassionate, capable of seeing not just what someone is, but what they could become. "Do you remember what you told me that day in the cafeteria?" he asked. Jessica closed her eyes for an instant, as if searching for the memory in a distant corner of her mind. Her expression shifted, and a faint regret touched her. "I am so terribly sorry for that," she said. "I should have been more—" Michael interrupted her with a gentle gesture. "Number, you said exactly what you needed to say. You looked me in the eyes and said, 'Perhaps another time.' Remember?" She nodded slowly, almost in a whisper. "I've dwelled on this for 40 years, Michael continued. "You weren't cruel. You didn't laugh at me. You didn't mock me. You were kind. Even as merely a teenager, you cared about my feelings. And back then, that meant everything." Jessica averted her gaze, fighting back the tears that were already welling up. But Michael stepped closer. "I spent 40 years of my life obsessed with winning. Games, championships, business. Everything was about proving I was the best, that I deserved to be where I was. But you spent 40 years proving something far more important." "What?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "That love matters more than victory. That caring for others matters more than tending to one's own ego. That being an unseen heroine matters more than being a visible legend." Jessica could no longer resist. Tears streamed freely, but it was a beautiful cry. A cry of liberation, of recognition, of peace. She shook her head and murmured, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Have you ever wondered what it would have been like if I had said yes that day?" Michael gazed at her earnestly. It took him a few seconds before responding. "I have, many times. But today I know the truth. If you had said yes, perhaps you would have become Jessica Jordan instead of Jessica Miller Thompson. Perhaps you would have lived in my world instead of creating your own." He turned his body and subtly pointed to the group of children who were still smiling and embracing their families. "And these 23 children, perhaps they would have had a different teacher, someone who wouldn't love them as you do. Jessica let out a tear-choked laugh. So you're saying that rejecting me was the best thing I could have done? Michael smiled. I'm saying that your no was the greatest gift these children have ever received. And perhaps, he paused, perhaps that is more significant than any relationship we could have had. Jessica lowered her head, overcome with emotion. But there was a new glint in her eyes when she lifted her face. You changed my life, Michael. Not just today. Back then, too. That rejection taught me I didn't need to be accepted by everyone. To have worth. I learned that my worth didn't come from others. It came from what I chose to do with my life. Michael nodded. And where did you find that worth? She turned her head to observe her students once more. In them, in every arduous step forward, every word uttered with effort, every spontaneous embrace, every time someone looked at me as if I were their entire world. It was through them that I discovered my purpose. Michael was visibly moved. And you helped me find mine, she stated, her voice steady, because today, for the first time, I felt the world truly saw me. Michael extended his hand, lightly touching hers. Then we're even. Before they could continue, Marcus dashed toward them, his camera slung around his neck, displaying the most genuine smile imaginable. Mr. Michael, may I take a picture with you and Ms. Thompson? Of course, Marcus, Michael replied, crouching beside the boy. Jessica joined him, and the three posed together, two worlds united by a boy who simply wished to immortalize that moment. Before the click, Michael leaned in and whispered into her ear, "Thank you for saying no." Jessica closed her eyes for a second and replied, "Thank you for asking." In that instant, something sacred transpired. Two lives that had briefly intersected in the past now became entirely intertwined, not because of who they might have been together, but because of who they had become apart. They smiled. And for a fleeting moment, the world seemed at peace. Today, 5 years after that transformative night, the Jessica Miller Thompson model is implemented in over 500 schools across 25 states. Thousands of children who might have otherwise been overlooked are now thriving. Jessica, now 65 years old, continues to teach. Her multiple sclerosis is effectively managed thanks to cutting-edge treatments provided by the foundation. She trains other educators, advocates for public policy, and travels nationwide sharing her methodology. The Michael Jordan Foundation has expanded internationally, with Jessica Miller Thompson centers opening in Brazil, Mexico, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Each center upholds the same principle. Every child deserves love, attention, and the opportunity to shine. Marcus, the boy with Down syndrome whom Jessica had helped with his writing, now works as an assistant in the school library. Sarah, the girl with autism, has become a talented artist, selling her paintings to help fund art therapy programs. But perhaps the most profound legacy is the lesson this story imparts. Sometimes the people who tell us no are not closing doors. They are opening windows. Sometimes rejection isn't about us not being good enough. It's about us being destined for something different. Sometimes the greatest gift one can bestow upon us is to compel us to become who we were truly meant to be. The cheerleader who rejected Michael Jordan evolved into something far more significant than a high school date. She became a champion for children who desperately needed champions. And the basketball player who faced rejection learned that the most significant victories are not secured on crowded courts, but rather in quiet classrooms, alongside children whose names may never grace record books, yet whose lives hold as much significance as any championship. One day it was a sun-drenched morning at Pine Valley Elementary, but inside the auditorium, eyes shone brighter than the sun itself. The stage was adorned with colorful balloons, paper flowers crafted by the students themselves, and a banner boldly proclaiming, "Congratulations, special education graduates." Jessica Miller Thompson stood there, poised on the stage, clutching the microphone in one hand and her cane in the other. Her body was no longer what it once was. Multiple sclerosis exacted a daily toll, but her eyes were more vibrant than ever. Before her, 23 children, now adolescents, proudly received their completion certificates. Some had learned to write their own names, others to speak a complete sentence. Some managed to hold a pencil, others to hold someone's gaze. Each diploma presented represented a silent triumph against a system that had routinely overlooked them. In the audience, parents wept unashamedly. Teachers gave standing ovations. Yet among them all, a singular figure sat in the back row, clad in a simple suit and bearing a genuine smile. Michael Jordan. He was not the Michael Jordan of Nike, the NBA, or the headlines. He was simply Michael, the man who had come to understand, late, but not too late, that some victories cannot be enshrined in trophies. When Jessica saw him, her eyes softened. She offered a wave, not with the gesture of one rediscovering a lost love, but with the tenderness of someone recognizing a true friend. The gesture of one who understands that some stories are not about what might have been, but about everything that truly came to pass. After the ceremony, amidst hugs and photographs, Michael approached quietly. Jessica was surrounded by students and colleagues, yet upon seeing him, she made space as if she had been anticipating that very moment. "How do you feel?" he inquired, with that serene tone only maturity bestows. Jessica took a deep breath. She looked at the stage, then at the children laughing and embracing their parents. "Complete," she replied. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete." Michael nodded, moved. "Me too." They embraced. It wasn't a romantic embrace nor a nostalgic one. It was an embrace imbued with purpose, the silent communion between two individuals who had cast aside the what-ifs and embraced the "this is how it was meant to be." "Thank you, Jessica," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She furrowed her brow gently. "Thank me for what?" "For showing me that there are victories far grander than those reported in newspapers. That there are achievements too profound for statistics, but which reside in the soul." Jessica smiled, her eyes glistening. "And thank you for showing me that it's never too late to be recognized. Never too late to be seen." A long pause ensued. Both understood. They likely wouldn't see each other again for quite some time. Their lives had resumed diverging paths as they were meant to. But in that instant, there was no resentment, no void, no longing for what might have been. There was peace. There was gratitude. They had given each other something rare, the certainty that life's purpose isn't to acquire what we desire, but to become who we were born to be. And sometimes the people who most profoundly aid us on this journey are those who tell us no when every fiber of our being expects to hear yes. Jessica remained on stage until the last student had departed. Afterward, she sat alone for a moment and surveyed her surroundings. There were no longer any spotlights, no speeches, no applause. Yet there, in the quietude of the end, she felt more affirmation than any trophy could ever bestow. If this story resonated with you, remember this. Not every rejection signifies loss. Not every no is a failure. Sometimes it's merely life propelling you toward where you truly belong. The individuals who challenge you, who turn their backs on you, or who seem to disbelieve in you, may, unbeknownst to them, be guiding you onto the right path. A path that doesn't lead to the limelight, but to purpose, to authentic love, to your mission. Jessica Miller. Thompson's life teaches us that true success isn't about becoming someone the world admires. It's about becoming someone the world needs. And perhaps, ultimately, that is the purest form of love there is. If you wish to hear more stories like this, stories that stir the heart, inspire the soul, and enable you to perceive life with fresh eyes, subscribe to the channel now. Activate the bell icon so you don't miss any story. Here, every no may well conceal a yes of a magnitude far greater than you can possibly conceive. And perhaps, your own narrative is also on the cusp of beginning.